go. Okay, we're recording. Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to the Power Half Hour. Last week we were in the shareholder summit. So this week we are back, and I am super excited for our amazing guest today. I met Kyle Handy. I think it was two years ago in Las Vegas at a Brent Gove event, and we instantly connected. I today still think you are one of the kindest people I've ever met, and I've always, just think the world of you. So thank you for being on our show. I know you're super busy. So without further ado, EXP icon agent Kyle Handy, welcome.
Thank you so much, John. And yeah, you're too kind, man. I think the same about you. And I appreciate you having me on the show. Yeah, hopefully I can, bring some value to those connecting.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, well, Kyle, when I think of EXP agents and who they should be, I think of you. Just full of contribution, kind, producing at a high level, and humble about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always think about that. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you sell real estate out of and how you got started.
Sure. So yeah, I got started about 13 years ago. I'm here in San Antonio, Texas. So I started in 2008, the best time to get into the business, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And I had just graduated from college. I got my degree in finance and really didn't know what I wanted to do, as far as if I was going to get into like banking, investments or whatever. And my mom was like, she had been in the real estate business, not full time or anything like that, but just kind of part-time dabbled in it. She had some friends. She was like, why don't you go get an interview with this new home builder? And so I did that, and I actually got hired. I was to much of my surprise. I had no sales experience. I was this young kid. I was 22 years old,
Wow.
and I got hired by a home builder here in San Antonio, a very reputable one. And that's kind of how I got my start into the business. And I did that for about 5 years. I worked for the builders called Ryland Homes. And so there was kind of a higher end, I'd say kind of above the average price point here. And I really, learned a lot. I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about real estate. I didn't even own a house, before I got started there. And so, and I always had a lot of doubts in my head that, I could make it in this business, because I was like, who's going to buy $300,000-$400,000 house from a 22-year-old kid? That's always what I had thought. And but one thing after another, I just kept improving my skills and getting better year over year. And then about 5 years after being in new home sales, I realized I wanted to kind of start having more freedom and kind of build my own business. And so in 2013 is when I got into actually the general real estate space. And I actually went straight to owning my own real estate brokerage, which is, I know that's a different path than what a lot of people, would probably do. Most would go to like a established brokerage or something like that. But I knew that I wanted to build a business that I could build leverage in and scale, and really kind of do something where, yes, my efforts are going to propel it, but then I wanted to also be able to leverage other people's efforts, and I figured just going and getting being like a real estate agent, it'd be really difficult to do that. But at the same time, I also didn't really know what I didn't know. I was kind of naive. And so I was like, look, I'll just do this brokerage thing. It's going to work. I never had a doubt in my mind. Like, that's not the way I think. I always just think positive and like, how do I solve problems? And I'll figure out things as I go. And so I did that, for basically for 4 years, from 2013 to 2017.
Oh, wow.
I had my own independent brokerage here in San Antonio, Texas. And I grew it to about 15 real estate agents. And most of them, they're all like kind of newbies, just getting into the business. They were friends of mine. But, out of those 15 agents, I had, a good 3 or 4 that were like solid agents. They were full-time, they were selling. I was, actively selling myself as well as, managing the brokerage. And, and then basically in 2017, that's when, I heard first about EXP and decided like, oh my gosh, like this is pretty unique. There's nothing that I'd ever seen like it. as far as the potential, and then also as far as the support that I could leverage EXP for to help with all the stuff that I was trying to do at my brokerage. Because I mean, I was swimming in 2017. I was
Mm.
up to my head, trying to sell, trying to manage everything. I had a lot of overhead. I had
Wow.
about 20 to 25,000 a month I was spending in overhead. And I just saw EXP as a way that, I could help my agents out to get further, faster. And it was a way that I could also get more exposure on like a nationwide stage versus just in
Right.
San Antonio. And then also it was just a good way for me to be able to continue selling and have more focus just on sales. And so in 2017, that's what I did. I switched over. And now, obviously I've been here for about 4 years. I hit Icon Agent, each year that I've been here, just from my production still. And that's been a life-changing opportunity for me as far as the stock and all the things that have come from that. But I've also made a lot of great friends at the company. I've learned a lot of things since being here, and I feel like my life is just a little bit more organized now. And so so now, long story short, my entire journey, what I really am passionate about now today, fast forwarding into like 2021, is helping other agents, go through their journey,
Mm.
and so that's what I've done now. I've basically now transitioning out of the actual production, out of the sales
Oh, okay.
myself, and focusing on my team, because I do have a team, a large team here at EXP. So focusing on them and helping them, but then also I've got a much larger audience just through like my YouTube channel and through my
Right.
blog that I continually try and produce more content for as well. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a long journey, and now 13 years into the game. I wanted to circle back on you being a 22-year-old getting into the business, because
Yeah.
we have a lot of new agents also, and they're always asking, who's going to buy a house from a 22-year-old? And then you were in that grind for 4 years. So how did you
Yeah.
overcome that as you started?
Yeah, I mean, that was always going through my head, and I would say, the easiest way for me to overcome it was I just had to be really sharp at my game. Like I was, very focused on trying to learn as much as I possibly could. So, when it came to like, at that time I was in new home sales, I figured, I for sure need to know everything that I can about my company, like first and foremost, like and about my product that I can offer,
Mm.
because I don't want somebody to come into my office and ask me questions and then not know the answer,
Yeah.
because then you basically are going to make it harder for yourself.
Right.
But like, because you're going to get tests, people like your clients are going to test you, and they're going to try and ask to see, and if you can support them and if you can help them, because if they feel like you're not professional, or if you don't have the experience or whatever, they will move on, they'll find somebody else. And so
Mm.
you got to overcome it by really honing in on your craft. And I mean, it doesn't happen day one. You can overcome some of your lack of experience by just being professional and making sure that you have appropriate responses. Like, if you don't know the answer, I mean, I would always say, hey, that's a great question. That's the first time I've actually ever been asked that, but I promise you one thing, I will find you the right answer. And I'm not just going to blatantly give you something off the top of my head if it's not right. And I think some people would respect that. And so it all kind of come down to just your confidence. It would come down to your professionalism. And then I just was never satisfied with what I knew. Like I always wanted to
Mm.
get better. So then I went from knowing my product to knowing my competition, to knowing just the real estate market in general. So I had market knowledge, and you just kind of start branching off of all of that.
Mhm.
And then once you have that, like, it doesn't matter if you're 22 or if you're 50, too. It's just once you have that knowledge and you have that confidence, it exudes off of you, and then you
Mhm.
really don't think much more after that. Like, I would say I thought like that for maybe about a year or so, but then I knew my experience was good, because I was really working on it, and I really didn't have those doubts as much anymore when I was 23, 24.
So a couple of years in the grind and really learning from being out there. But guys, the new guys on the call, really work on your craft. If you're in resale, it's called role playing your skills, or role playing your scripts, and chanting your scripts and talking to more people simply, and study the market. Right, that's what Kyle did, and by year 2, year 3, you're ready to go. You're like, okay, I got this. Right. What kept you
Absolutely.
so hungry in improving yourself when you first got in?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I am a pretty just, self-motivated person. I've always, even from a young age, like, when I was like 14 years old, I was selling stuff online, like on eBay. I
Wow.
had like an eBay business. I had websites that, I was selling different things on to pay for like my first car when I was 16, like I always was like entrepreneurial and always like motivated. One, I mean, I'm a competitor. I was always like a sports person, growing
Ah,
up. So like I'm motivated by competition. I always wanted to be the best. And so, I mean, the nice thing about, in the environment that I was at with new home sales was, I mean, every Friday we'd meet for like a sales meeting and they'd always go over like who, wrote contracts for the week,
ah,
who, all this kind of stuff. So I was always motivated. I wanted to be the number one, salesperson in my office. And so I think that helped me to constantly want to learn to be better. It was just kind of the competition side of it.
yeah. It kind of reminds me of Last Dance and the Michael Jordan story. How he was always, grew up just hungry,
Yep.
and his I don't know if you saw his Hall of Fame speech. Always had a fire in him.
Yeah, no, I missed
Yeah,
the Hall of Fame speech, but I loved the Last Dance. I watched that whole
yeah.
series. Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
you
it
got
was
to
so
check it out.
inspiring, so inspiring.
Super inspiring. So yeah,
Yep.
you have that competitive drive in you,
Yeah.
and therefore you came out of the new home sales into directly into building your own brokerage. You know how scary that is? When you're 27 years old, what
Yeah.
are you crazy?
Trust me, man. Like it was one of those things where it was just, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it was kind of like, I just pushed forward and assumed it would all work out. And luckily, I didn't do anything that messed me up too bad or anything. I
Right.
learned a lot of lessons. Trust me, over those 4 years
Mm.
that I had my brokerage, I learned a lot of things very quickly about leadership, about, managing, about just finances in general, about,
Wow.
I learned a lot about myself, how much I can handle, all that kind of stuff over those 4 years. So I'm super happy that I did it kind of blindly, because if I would have
Mm.
known ahead of time, like what I was about to embark on, I may not have done it. You know what I mean? It was just, but overall, yeah, when I look back at my career, I'm super happy that I did it.
Yeah, definitely. When I first got in, nobody told me anything, and 6 months in, I haven't really. I made like one sale, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm still happy. I'm $15,000, $20,000 in debt. Oh, that's just what it is, right? I
Yep.
didn't know what I didn't know. People never told me that you need to have 6 months reserve. I didn't
Yep.
know that, right? So sometimes it's better to just be blind and just have blind faith and just go with it.
It is. I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, the whole thing too. So like, and this is what makes it even more scary was, in basically right when I made that transition over, so I had no kids. I have two kids now. I've got a 4 and a 6 year old now. But when I decided to go into general real estate from, this great career in new home sales, I mean, I was making, 200 to 250 a
Wow.
year in new home sales. So to go from that into general real estate where you don't know what's going to happen, at the time I had no kids. So I was like, this is the time to take risks. This is the time to like do things like that. Well, like literally, I think like the month after I decided, I had already quit from my last job, I found out my wife was pregnant, and I was like, oh my gosh, well now I've got to make this thing work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was like no turning back. And so, but I'm so glad that I did it because I was doing it for the right reasons. I knew that I wanted the freedom aspect of it. Like that's something that new home sales, I couldn't really get because
Mhm.
you're there Saturday and Sunday, you're working for the builder, you're there till sometimes 10 o'clock at night. If you get a
Ooh.
client that comes in at 7 o'clock right before you shut your doors and they want to write a deal or something, you're there till late. And I was like, man, I don't mind working hard, but I want to do it like on my, kind of my time. And so that's why I didn't, got into the general real estate side of it. And it was because, now, especially with having kids, I'm like, man, I wanted to be able to, to build that freedom into my lifestyle. But at the same
Right. Right.
time, I mean, it's been 8 years since I, decided to go down that path. And I'm finally now to the point where like I do have that freedom. It's not
Ah,
instantaneous. And so, I mean, that's something that
no.
I'll share with your audience that, when you get into real estate, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows. I mean, it takes a lot of I was working 80, 90 hours a week when I was getting my brokerage up, when I was, working at, getting my general real estate business going. I mean, I was working really, really hard, and it's finally now to where I can kind of, start to settle things down. I've got a team, I've got, a lot of different systems in place, but it's all worth it. I mean, I definitely would say that it's 100% worth it. I mean, the freedom that we've got. I don't know if you saw my shirt. I've got the "Living the Fantasy Life"
Nice.
shirt on because my family and I, we just bought a Class B, like a Sprinter van,
Oh,
and
nice.
we're just traveling. I mean, that's our life now is basically full-time travel. I still help the team through remotely, and I still create my content remotely because I can do all of that
Nice.
stuff wherever. And then fortunately, all of the business that I've built here locally in San Antonio, I've got a team to kind of manage and handle that, and I just get like a
Ah,
referral fee from the deal. But yeah, I mean, you can build whatever you want in this industry, but you gotta put the time and the effort into it for sure.
yeah, time and effort, guys. I think it was Warren Buffett's quote where he said, if you want a baby, you can't have it tomorrow. You have to be pregnant for 9 months, is what he's saying,
Mhm.
right? If you want a baby, you can't be pregnant for like 1 month and expect the baby to come out. Same with real estate, guys. Be patient. It took 13 years for Kyle to be in his position right now. Obviously, super successful, but you didn't see the struggle. So I want to hear about risk,
Yeah.
because you took a lot of risk, and I don't think I myself I'm not very risk tolerant,
Mhm.
but you went from a very safe sales job, $250,000 a year. That's a lot of money in San Antonio back then
Mhm. Oh
too.
yeah.
And then you just went zero to open up your own brokerage, not even going to be a resale agent first at, let's say, a Remax.
Yeah.
Like, how are you able to handle so much risk?
I would say, I mean, for me, I look at life as like an adventure. It's like something that I always, want to, be better at, and to have different experiences. And so I'm not afraid to like make mistakes, because I feel like even if I make them, which I've made plenty, I've always wound up okay on the other end of it, just because of
Mm,
my mindset and how I believe if you work diligently, and if you and have a plan. I'm not saying you don't do like when I take risk, it's not like blind risk or anything like that. I mean, I do have a plan behind it, and typically I've got like a plan B behind that. It's like I always looked
okay.
at it like, I mean, hey, I mean, if this thing doesn't work out, in having my own brokerage or even just general estate in general, I mean, I've got the experience. I could go back at that point because I mean, 5 years later, I had a lot of experience. I could go to another builder and get hired, right? So you always have some backup, right? So it's not like
Right.
you're completely just going out on a limb. But at the same time, I knew where I wanted to go, so I was willing to put everything else on the line to get there. And I think so. Sometimes you just have to kind of figure that out if that's where you're at in your life, or you want some change, you want some massive change. What are you gonna be willing to put out there to go after it? Because I did have to give up a lot of stuff. I mean, for a while I gave up a lot of money because it took a while before my real estate started making me as much as I was making in new home sales.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, so that was something I had to give up. I had to give up a lot of time because, I mean, at that point, 5 years into new home sales, I had it down pat. I mean, I knew my product, I knew my competitor's product, I knew how to go to the office and then like just work and then come home. And so like, but then when I got into general real estate, I had to learn everything brand new again. I mean, it was like a whole nother business essentially. And so, I mean, I was working a lot, and my wife was pregnant and we were like about to have a baby. And so it was like, putting all this time and effort in, but I knew what the ultimate outcome was. And so I was willing to do it. And so I think you have to make that commitment in your mind, first off, that the risk is worth it. Because if the risk is not worth it, you're not going to be all in. And then at that point, you might fail at something that you could have been
Hmm.
successful with if you were all in. But so I mean, that's where again, it all has to start in your head. You got to put it down as a plan. And then you got to work the plan and really, be serious about it.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing you say is that although you take risks, but it was calculated risk,
Definitely.
and you had a plan. You had a plan A and you had a plan B.
100%.
But you went all in. How important is it to go all in for a real estate agent, do you think?
Oh, 100%. It's so important. I mean, it's probably the most important thing. I mean, I think that's the hardest part about being like, like a part-time agent or somebody who's like trying to transition into getting into real estate like full-time,
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that, I mean, this business, like, I think for the ones that are really successful with it, I mean, it's like what you first think about when you wake up in the morning. It's what you think about when you're going to bed at night. Like, I know for me, like, that's how it is. Like, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and the first thing that I want to do is come up to my office and start like doing stuff, like to try and further my business. And, and then, when I'm going to bed at night, like usually I'm thinking about like, what can I do different? What can I do, the next day? Like what did I do today that I was, happy about? What do I still need to finish off? And so like, but when you're not all in, like if you're just kind of like, just doing this to try it out or to try and see how it goes, you're not like as crafty. You're not like
Mm-hmm.
trying to like think of these different like little unique, because I mean that's the thing is, I mean the difference between like really good agents and ones that maybe don't even make it in the business, sometimes it's not that much. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
it's just these like little unique opportunities. It's the way that they might do something differently, or the way they might approach something. But if you're not all the way in, you miss on these like little tiny things.
Guys, the part-time agents on this call or watching on Facebook, let's go all in, guys. If you're not going to go all in, you're not going to have extraordinary results, right? You got to go all the way in, guys, and that's what you've achieved. Um, Talk a little bit about leadership, because you went from the brokerage
Yeah.
and you have 15 agents. Now, 4 years later, you have 450 agents.
Yep.
Guys, that's 30 times in 4 years.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So tell us a little bit about leadership and what you had to learn about leadership to get to where you're at today.
Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, some of the things that I've learned a lot, especially here, as my group has grown rapidly, lately, I've had to like really figure out empowering other people. Before, like when I thought of leadership, I thought like leadership meant I had to do everything. Like that was like my biggest struggle. Like with even like when I had a sales team, like my local sales team here in San Antonio, I felt like leadership meant like I do everything, and I'm the director. But honestly, the more that I've learned about leadership, I've realized that like leadership is empowering other people
Mm,
to do stuff, more so even than yourself, right? Like you've got the vision as the leader, and you should try and, help implement that vision out. But like you need to get out of your own way, to be able to allow people to do, what they're good at, and to, to show off their talents. And so I think that especially as my team here at EXP has grown over, 400 people, like I've got some really amazing talent on my team. And instead of me thinking like, oh, well, I'm Kyle, I'm the one that makes all these YouTube videos, and I'm the one that
mm,
trains all these agents on my blog, and I've got to do all this stuff to get all of my team to keep growing. It was actually the opposite. I mean, like, probably I would say I made that epiphany like a year ago, where I was just like, you know what? I need to go ahead and start like lifting up other people and letting them, help take some of this, um, this group over, and basically make it theirs too. And since I've done that, our culture of our entire organization, like my organization, so the sub organization of EXP that I've got control over, the culture has improved, immensely.
mm.
The support has improved immensely. I feel like, my, daily routine, my weekly routine is so much less burdensome, I guess you could say. And so like being a leader, I think, you'll go through all sorts of different like ideas in your head of, I think, what that means. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I think the more that you start to like incorporate other people into like what you're trying to do, I think that's the true definition of being like a really good leader.
It really is about empowering others. And, I would think way back, I would think like being a leader is still being the best agent, best, highest selling agent on the team. And then everybody would just follow. It really didn't work like that. And I was burning myself out doing
Yep.
that. So I think I'm on the right track now, following you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally true. I was in the same mindset, man. I felt like, oh, if I just keep pushing, if I keep pushing, people will follow that. But it didn't quite work that way. And I tried so many different iterations of it. It just it wasn't going the way that I would have hoped to. And now I
Yeah,
finally feel like it is. It's so weird.
takes
It
time.
yeah, it does. It takes time. It for sure does,
Yeah.
but totally worth it though.
We got some comments here.
Yeah.
Why do you think some agents made the decision to go all in and why some don't?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, usually it's like a pain or pleasure kind of thing.
Mm,
So, like if you got, enough pain in your life from something, then, it's probably a little bit easier to like go all in and try and really, make whatever this next thing work. Whereas if you're like already doing pretty good, if there's really no, huge motivations, like if, if it's not like a burning desire for you to change your life, for the positive, or if it's not like you don't have a lot of negative in your life, then it's just very easy to like kind of still just stay lukewarm all the time.
right,
Like for me, like, I definitely had a burning desire because I mean, as you remember, it's like, I mean, my daughter was about to be born. I had
right.
no guaranteed income coming in. So I mean, there was like a burning thing there. Plus, I mean, I'm a sole income earner. Like my wife doesn't work; she stays at home with the kids. So like,
Mm,
I've always had that like feeling of like, I've got to do this. And so, but if you're in that position where maybe it's like you've got a spouse that works and they bring in some money, and you're maybe bringing in some money, and things are like okay, it's good. That's kind of like, yeah, I know there's a quote. I'm a terrible quote person, but it's like, like the enemy of great is good or something. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing okay,
yeah,
like you don't think to go all in because you're doing okay, and you're okay with that. And so, but I think that you really have to get to a point in your life where you're not okay with just being like
hmm,
where you're at, right? Like, and if that's the case, then yes, I mean, then the only option is to go all in. And so I think that's why some people make the decision and some don't. That'd be my guess.
yeah. And guys, and there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever works for you. And however, if you want extraordinary results, you got to go all in.
That's right.
Another comment from Taryn: I would love to go all in, but having a family and leaving my full-time job scares me. My biggest fear is not providing for my kids, my wife, and parents.
Yeah, well, I totally get it. I mean, it's definitely scary, and risk is sometimes scary too. And but at the same time, that's where you have to like ask yourself, like what are you more afraid of, right? Like
Mhm.
what's like, are you afraid of, living a life where you never will get ahead? Or, like, and I don't know that, your particular situation. I'm not saying you're not ahead, but like wherever you're at, like if you're not happy there, well, that's a fearful position too. Like, if you're not satisfied and if you want more, there could be just as much fear there living that same lifestyle than if you were to maybe take on something different or, change your mindset. And because really, I know it sounds really scary to like go all in, but if anything, like, I mean, there's really not a lot bad that can come from it. I'm not saying to like go all in and start spending like tens of thousands of dollars and put your life savings at risk. I'm talking about more of like your personal development and what you're willing to sacrifice of of you to be able to like take that next, make it to the next level. And so, sometimes it's just a commitment of like, hey, this is what I'm gonna, I'm gonna be willing to work X amount. I'm gonna be willing to, put myself out there as far as like if you're not like a phone person and and that if you just prospected more, you would be more successful. Like a lot of the times, like that's what we're talking about all in. It's not like a thing that like you're gonna like risk your family because of. It's more of just like a lot of times it could be ego that you're risking, and you've got to be willing to do that. It could just be comfort, like, like, yeah, like, I mean, would I rather be able to sit down and watch Netflix and, chill for, a few hours a day? And, well, yeah, I mean, so like sometimes you're just giving up something like that to go all in. And I think that's where I think if you want to make a change big enough, then you got to do it,
Absolutely. And Taryn, great question, by the way. And again, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's just whatever works for you. And I think we take it offline and we'll chat. And I think you can do it, Taryn. I believe in you.
Yes, you can, Taryn.
Awesome, man. How about one last piece of advice for the crowd to have us, finish strong for, Q2?
Yeah, well, here's my thing, and I've been talking about this, now for a little while, especially to my group, is I think the biggest thing that separates those that are successful in real estate from those that might be struggling is coming from a position of contribution always, and trying to figure out how you can add more value to the marketplace. And so, if you're a real estate agent, you got to think about like, what could I do to be more valuable to potential clients out there. And like, for me now, like knowing what I know about like YouTube and blogging, I mean, there's so many ways that you can scale your value to lots of people pretty quickly. I've got, friends in my group that they built a YouTube channel 12 months ago for selling real estate, like locally in San Antonio and other markets. And they're selling now 5 to 8 deals a month from relocation people that are finding their videos on YouTube. And their videos are like, the 5 best places to live in San Antonio, how to get a mortgage in San Antonio, Texas. Like, they're just videos that they're providing value. And these videos work in the background, or it could be a blog post or whatever. And they're providing value. And it takes a little bit. It doesn't happen overnight. But if we're talking about like something that they could do here that might move the needle by the end of the year, you certainly, that it is a strategy that'll work. I promise you, and I know that, there's a lot that goes into learning how to make some videos, or if you want to do a blog, like how do you build a website? There's all those questions that start coming into your mind. But I promise you that with the way technology is today, there's no question that you can't find the answer to out there already. You can find out how to start a YouTube channel. You can find out how to start a blog. You can find out, just even if you don't know how to answer those questions, like, what are the best markets? I mean, that's the things you need to learn, right? That's part of being a professional in your craft. And so, that's where I would say, for anybody watching this, if you want to improve your business, not only just this year, but you want to build like a scalable, long lasting business that's consistent, provides, leads coming in consistently to you. You're not like, susceptible to like always having to pay for leads on Zillow or on Facebook, or the other big thing for me that I always preach on is like, I'm not like a huge social media person. Like, I mean, I am on, Facebook and Instagram. Like I've got all of those, but I hate posting like all the time. Like I can't like, like I'm not like that kind of person. I would rather build like a piece of content, like a YouTube video or a blog post, and maybe make like 2 of them a week, but then have them work for me over the course of years. That's just my style versus like, people, but I mean, you can be successful doing the other way too. But that's where for me, I'm like, for a scalable, consistent business, put out some value out there in a manner that's going to get consumed over long periods of time, not just short periods of time. And that way you can be more efficient over a long period of time, and you'll have a more steady, smooth business, which in real estate, it's very uncommon to have. So I'm telling you, I mean, that is the formula for consistency, is putting value out there that'll get consumed over long periods of time.
Thank you so much, guys. Contribution, and scale that contribution by creating consistent content, and you will have a consistent business. Who wants to have a consistent business? I do. So
Absolutely.
Keep creating content, guys. Thank you, Kyle. How can we follow you on social media? How can we send you referrals, and how can we join your team at EXP?
Yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, I mean, if you want, just on YouTube, go subscribe to my channel, Kyle Handy. I've got, probably a little over 100 videos on there now. And I do plan to start releasing some more here pretty soon. And so that's probably one of my biggest ones. And then on my blog, kylehandy.com, I've got a lot more content on there, articles and things that I've created myself, different tools and resources that you can grab from there as well. Everything is free. And then, if you want to actually connect with me, if you want to reach out, feel free to shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. or you can email me, kyle@thehandyteam.com. Those are kind of the best ways, I would say, to get in touch with me. And then from there, we can connect. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. If you've just got questions about your real estate business, about EXP, about just anything, let me know. I'm like I say, I love to help agents. That's my passion. And I was in probably, in the shoes of everyone that's watching this at some point in my career. So I know where you're at, where you're coming from, and I'm always happy to help. So.
We can't thank you enough, man. And always so humble and modest, always being a contribution. We thank you today. Guys, let's make it a great day, Kyle. We'll see you soon, sir. Thank you so
Likewise,
much.
John. Great talking to you. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.